Hey, John Zorchi's here, and to go on a know self journey, one must first be like a little baby, ready to go on one's first steps. I'm a little baby. Are you a little baby? And what do babies do? They expect the unexpected. Meow.
Okay, let's then also consider a few other things, because what I find really fascinating actually, John, is how when you turn 57, the 10th house is going to be activated for you in your chart. Now, before you turn 57, with you being 56 currently, the 9th house is activated, right? And Uranus is currently transiting your 9th house of long distance travel. So we are seeing these disruptions, right? These shake-ups to do with travel and also to do with higher education, advanced training, expanding your mind, thinking about really growing and questioning your meaning in life. So we have noticed these sudden changes, these epiphanies, many awakenings, perhaps, profound awakenings, basically tied to your physical security and your finances. Okay, so by the time you're 57, the 10th house will be activated. And so this basically means that for that year, so when you celebrate your next birthday for that year ahead, what will be activated in your chart is that of career, purpose, the long-term accomplishment, achievement, your public image. And what you have there is Gemini. Gemini resides in the 10th, so Gemini is a very versatile, curious sign. We could look at this as you having multiple jobs throughout your life, kind of going in and out of different roles, positions, wanting to learn, being quite an active learner, being a very curious individual, maybe juggling a few different jobs or roles at the same time. You needing flexibility. I think flexibility is a really important thing for you when it comes to a career, a particular role. Also, we could look at this as you needing some kind of creative outlet. So even though you might put a lot of effort into work and results and making sure that you show up as a responsible person, I think equally it's important for you to be quite playful and to be creative, to have a bit of a laugh. Having said that, right, we also see that the very ruler of Mercury, of the midheaven, which is Mercury, well, Mercury is located in Virgo. So we go back to Virgo. We notice how studious you can be. We notice how you need time to mull things over, to let information just sink in, to digest information. We notice here that you tend to be quite matter of fact and very rational, logical. We see here that when it comes to doing a good job, you want to do more than a good job. You want to do an excellent job. You want to perform really well. Your standards can be quite high, and maybe it is important to meet your standards. If anything is to be changed or fixed or sorted out, you may think to yourself, actually, I can't rest until I attend to that. Now, having said that, we also see that the ascendant, right? So the ascendant, like I said, it's in Virgo. Because the ascendant is in Virgo, Mercury is then the chart ruler. So Mercury also rules your chart. So we also see that this organizing mindset that you have, this mindset of making sure that everything is polished and clean, Well, it's that very mindset that is tied to your purpose, I think. I think for you, you are quite a creative person. I think that you may have many visions about, okay, how can we make a product so that life is easier for people? I think that you're continuously thinking about new strategies, new methods, so that things can be more efficient.
Oh, yeah.
And it is fascinating because Mercury is conjunct Venus. So there is this beauty in how you think, how you speak, how you communicate. I think that you can come across as quite business orientated, or as quite diplomatic, as quite the negotiator as well, perhaps quite pleasing when it comes to communication, and getting people on your side. Now, having said that, yes, with Venus and Mercury both being in Virgo, Virgo is often known for being hypercritical, quite picky, quite fault-finding. Yes, we could look at this through a beneficial lens. You can bring those kinds of qualities into your role. For example, seeing what needs to be changed, seeing what needs to be adjusted so that the performance of a particular role or company is way higher, so that you get the results that you need. But then we could also look at this as you often getting in your own head. And I suppose that is something that I touched on earlier. And so this is where the worry and the stress and the overthinking can come in, and where the overanalyzing things, and then maybe that can even lead to some procrastination, right? You can procrastinate or put things off. So maybe in a way, the South Node traveling through the first house for you over the next year, that's going to be quite, well, basically it indicates a time of you assessing those qualities, right? To be able to reflect and go, hold on, is this actually serving me? Maybe I am overthinking this. Maybe I don't have to worry about that, or maybe I don't have to pick myself apart whenever a certain situation doesn't go according to plan, according to my view, that kind of thing. Though, when we consider this in terms of career and the next step, you turning 57, the 10th house being activated, perhaps we could look at this through a lens of editing, being a tutor, a teacher, being maybe a bookkeeper, assessing large chunks of information, data collecting, data processing, working heavily with technology. Maybe even we could look at this as you teaching different languages, right? Maybe you do know more than one or two languages here, especially because Jupiter is involved too, with Jupiter being in Virgo, conjunct the ascendant. Also, we could look at this through a lens of you possibly entering into roles that require a lot of hygiene, cleanliness, maybe working with animals, helping the vulnerable, thinking about the elderly, people who need support, thinking about people who may be struggling in some way, shape or form with managing their own lives, and so you can assist. We just see this through a lens of help or service. Now, at the same time, because Gemini is involved in this, this could be a case of making such matters more enjoyable, right? Bringing this lightheartedness to the equation. This could be, for example, teaching in a way that is engaging, teaching in a way that really gets other people thinking and gets them excited. But equally, you're going to provide practical tips, practical advice, and you're going to want to make things more useful for other people. But what we want to do, though, is we also want to think about Mercury and how Mercury is traveling through the zodiac throughout the next year. Well, firstly, what I am going to say is when we look to the secondary progressed Mercury, it's actually retrograde in Libra. So there's this diplomatic view coming into the equation, I think, within your career next year. I'm thinking about contracts, agreements, business deals, keeping up with significant records. Pallas is also in Libra too, so we consider here your strategic thinking being quite political, possibly, or you being quite diplomatic in your dealings with others, even if there are political opinions being discussed. Or it's that law could come into the equation, justice, being a defender of justice, weighing out all of your options as well. And to think about this in terms of your personal assets, your personal earnings, your money basically, because the secondary progressive Mercury is in the second house. I am also thinking about you weighing out your options when it comes to your finances, just getting things in order. And with the retrograde motion of Mercury, there is a bit of a back and forth. There could be some indecision or needing to weigh out your options so that you can make the best possible decision for you. Okay, and
that's
also
exactly
coming at things from a really rational, fair place, maybe even being a natural mediator comes to mind here. Could also be that you turn to the likes of fashion, design, music, beauty as forms of inspiration. And Pallas too, I want to add, Pallas can be about our healing methods. So with Pallas in Libra, I mean, this could be a case of Tai Chi being quite a healing activity for you, counseling, mediation could contribute to your healing. And when we think about this in terms of relationships and couples and partnerships, right, maybe couples therapy is something you've either tried in the past or it's something that you would like to try in the future. Or it could be a case
I had
of
5 marriage therapists
being at a
before I got
stage in your
divorced.
life where you and your spouse, your partner, you have tried couples therapy and maybe it's helped to a large extent there. So those would be a few different possibilities with Pallas. But really with Mercury, the secondary progressive Mercury being in Libra, there is more of a diplomatic and fair and reasonable way that you may want to communicate or share information with others. And you may be really reflective there. So really reflecting upon, okay, well, how will this person feel whenever I say this information, or how can I put myself into this other person's shoes? And you're going to be, as I said, you're going to be quite strategic. And you know what? Those kinds of ways of thinking could really show up within business and result in you being very good at business, very good at maybe getting along with coworkers or getting people on your side, right? Making more friends than foes, let's just put it that way, especially when it comes to your career life, your professional life. But like I was saying earlier, let's think about Mercury. So what's actually happening with Mercury over the next year? So whenever you do turn 57, and how will Mercury move through the zodiac, and what could that suggest for your professional life? Well, what we see here is that around November, December time, that Mercury will retrograde in both Scorpio and Sagittarius. So we could look at this as you reevaluating matters tied to home, family, your local community, your local area.
Yeah, I'm trying to get
we could look at this
dual
as
citizenship
you
from Greece
trying
and trying to move to Greece.
Assess your future aspirations, kind of thinking about, okay, well, what do you want for the future? Maybe feeling this call. You've already, I think, experienced these kinds of feelings because there was that Mercury retrograde that occurred in Sagittarius towards the end of 2024. But still, what comes to mind here is you considering what your next steps are, really reevaluating what it is that you want to do opportunity-wise, travel-wise, expansion-wise. And of course, these matters will also be tied in with networks, groups, communities, teams, because Jupiter will also be in Cancer at the time. But then as for that Scorpio section, I think the retrograde could also invite some harsh truths, things coming to light, maybe about idealistic views tied to, could be your peers, right? So people who are within the sort of same age bracket as you, could be some hard truths, some hidden truths brought to light, tied to your siblings or to more smaller, closer social circles, things like that. And considering as well in which ways you might be overly idealistic or dreamy about those areas, about those relationships. Could even be a case of wanting to deepen your bonds. That's another possibility, right? Deepening your bonds, experiencing greater intimacy, seeking deeper connection with people who live close to you. So that's another way to look at it, of course. So I do think that retrograde towards the end of the year, it will speak to a lot of depth and emotional insight. And maybe that's where too, it will behoove you to be mindful of who it is that you do connect with or relate to, especially within professional settings, because remember, Mercury does rule that 10th house area for you. Now, as for the Mercury retrograde, which will happen in Pisces, so that will be from February until March of 2026, that one's going to be quite interesting because I think that's going to speak to you taking a closer look at business deals, contracts, agreements, thinking about certain settlements. Could even be about new relationships or the ending of relationships. Could also be that relationships from the past, they come up asking you to pay close attention, not necessarily physically, but it could be a case of emotions linked to those past relationships that come up, maybe asking you to look at them so that you can make peace with them. But then I also think because Mercury does rule that 10th house area for you, you'll be in this 10th house year. We could see this as maybe you needing to take your time as you reevaluate where you are professionally. Certain documents could be looked over, emails could be looked over, just making sure that you are seeing things clearly, because of course with Pisces there can be this kind of fog that occurs. Now, the interesting thing about this then is when we explore the other Mercury retrograde, which will happen in Cancer, so that will be from June until July of 2026. That one I think is going to be quite an interesting one for you, friendship-wise, community-wise, support system-wise. See, what you're moving into over the next year is that you're gonna really reevaluate where you are within just relationships overall, because the 3rd house, the 7th house, and the 11th house are all relationship houses. They're very much about socializing. So with the 2nd house especially, the 7th house especially, it's more one-to-one. Okay, so that Mercury retrograde around February, March, that retrograde is going to speak to those one-to-one connections more strongly. But then we fast forward to June, July time of 2026 with Cancer involved. The 11th house really speaks to wider audiences, wider groups, networks, teams, organizations, firms, bigger communities, and those friendships, right? Those hopefully tighter friendships where you feel that support, because Cancer is such a nurturing sign. So I do think to a large extent, this is very much about the emotional world, your emotional self, and how you connect, how you relate with others. Those are going to be huge themes, huge kind of areas of life to reevaluate and to reassess, especially within the context of career, within the context of your public life, your public image. Okay, your professional life as well there, of course. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to explain how you were born shortly after a new moon occurred. You were actually born technically under a waxing crescent moon, but I would still consider the new moon influence to be somewhat strong. So what can this indicate? I think that you are quite the leader. I think that you are a very ambitious individual with this energy, especially in the first house, right? The first house of self, aims, ambitions. The first house, I would even suggest, is a house of action. It's also suggesting here that from a very young age, you were pretty much taught to be this helpful person, or to establish this work ethic. I see you possessing a strong work ethic.
I started working at 12 years old to 18 years old in my dad's restaurant.
This strong problem solver. And seeing what can be fixed, seeing how things can be improved within your environment. I even also see this as you being self-sufficient, self-reliant, being somewhat committed, okay? So, for example, whenever you do agree to something or you make a plan, I do see this as you wanting to follow through with that plan to a large extent, because it's almost like you want to do that as a way to prove to yourself that you can be reliable. I further see this with how you have Saturn in Aries as well, right? That self-sufficiency, possibly even in a way being forced to be self-sufficient, right? Forced to provide for yourself from quite a young age, forced to maybe get a job from a very, well, as soon as you could, you may have started working. And so I do see how...
Yeah, like I said before, just a few moments ago, I started working my dad's restaurant from 12 years old to 18 years old as a busboy, and then I peeled potatoes, I was a host, I was a waiter, I cooked, I did the dishwasher, I did the inventory, I took the money to the bank, yeah, all that stuff.
Your strong work ethic was nurtured or developed. It was in a way...
I would train the waitresses, the new waitresses.
way reinforced. It was reflected back at you through the environment you grew up in. I also partly see this as, especially with the moon involved here, you possibly being quite the family orientated person, right? That is a big possibility here, right? Where you show up for your loved ones, you show up as this practical caregiver, as this individual who can show through your actions basically that you're there for support, you're there to help. Now, with that being said, because there is just so much Virgo happening on one side and then there is like no Pisces on the other side, this again speaks to how the North Node in Pisces over the next year is going to be such a big teacher for you. So teaching you about how you can surrender, how you can let go, how you can approach things from a more empathetic, emotional place rather than from this really heady, logical, rational place, because that could be a possible challenge for you. But what I will say here is that when it comes to getting new projects off the ground, I think that you're someone who is able to plant those seeds. I think you're someone who can begin a new project and say, right, okay, let's be active about this. And equally, taking the lead to a large extent. Yes, Virgo as an archetype is typically the one who is of service and who doesn't necessarily take on strong leadership roles, is more willing to help other people out and contribute in that way. But with so much happening in this first house area for you, I do see this as you possessing such an independence, a bravery. There's such a bravery to you and how you show up in the world. There is potential for strong leadership roles and having this growth mindset. Personal development really comes to mind here. Self-improvement, really wanting to learn, being quite active about learning and about growth, and making, I would even argue, making a strong difference in the world through your actions, through your ways of just being of service. There's such a...
Yeah, I get new ideas all the time. I got a whiteboard right here, and I got new ideas that pop into me all the time, and I fill up the whiteboard and I take a picture of it, and I got a whole stack of whiteboard pictures that I have that I print out. I send them to my email, I print them out, and I incubate them. When the time is right, the world will see them. I've got so many new ideas. Look out for my new digital downloads. They're coming at a fast pace. I'm kidding around, but they're coming at a pace that it's my own.
Strength and grit and determination too here. Now, with that being said, I also want to mention another thing, and it's to do with a significant transit that's approaching. It's approaching very soon. So Uranus will actually enter your 10th house by the beginning of July. All right. So that's going to be for a few months. But then by I would say springtime of 2026, Uranus will officially enter Gemini, where Uranus will move through that 10th house area for you over the next 6 to 7 years. So let's break this transit down, because what we see here up ahead for you, John, are really exciting shifts. Right, so first of all, Uranus coming into the 10th can indicate a time of revolution, a time of sudden changes, surprises, especially within the areas of life related to your career, to significant progress, advancing in some way. So for instance, this could be a new opportunity that almost comes out of nowhere, and that new opportunity could be tied to education, right? So learning, when we think about Gemini here, could be tied to presenting, reporting, teaching, advertising, marketing, research, perhaps even joining together with others to a large extent. So you joining with like minds as a way to discuss, as a way to bounce your ideas off one another.
This is where my channel is going. Today's date that I'm doing this is Wednesday, May 28th, and my channel is just about getting some traction. It's kind of brand new right now, but by the time people watch this, it's going to be evergreen, and you'll see that I'll probably be talking to other people, and probably be on other people's podcasts and shows and YouTube channels and interviewing, and we'll be collaborating together, and we'll be bringing out our new ideas. That's what I see happening in what Hannah's saying. By the way, Hannah's awesome. If you want to do a 3-hour thing with her, I think it costs like $600 or something like that. And she did it. She's doing a great job. I don't know what you think about it, but I think she's doing a great job, because she's nailing like everything. And I'm trying to keep quiet, but now I'm like watching this, like it's 1 hour and 41 minutes right now. And it's like I gotta say something, you know. It's like I can't keep quiet for 3 fucking hours, you know. So yeah, let's just continue with what Hannah has to say. She's great. If you want to do a reading with her, there'll be a link below that you can do a reading with her. She's spot on. I've been following her since about 2018. She's amazing. Great channel that she's got. All right, talk to you later.
And to possibly even link this stuff in with your services, your work, what you provide, what you offer, right? Because we go back to how Uranus does rule the 6th house for you, right? So Aquarius in the 6th actually is a big indicator of experimentation, to experiment when it comes to your work and your daily habits. Plus, Uranus coming into the 10th could be this whole new concept related to the day-to-day. Right, so what I think about here is how your everyday, your routines, your habits, your rituals, those things are going to change quite profoundly over the next coming years. We also see here greater restlessness. We see here greater thought, greater curiosity, breakthroughs when it comes to your curiosity, breakthroughs when it comes to learning. Plus, we see here a greater push for freedom, especially intellectual freedom, communicative freedom. What's really coming through here is using your voice. So to communicate from a place of authenticity. So to share and engage and collaborate with others by communicating what it is that you really think, what your unique, so thinking about what your unique opinions are, or being okay with not necessarily agreeing with others, or being okay with challenging the status quo. We see greater non-conformity as well, right? So to...
I've got severe non-conformity, all right? My views are radical. Radical. Okay? And the world may not be ready for them, but I don't give a fuck. Right now I'm eating a banana because I want to, because I do whatever the fuck I want. And that's what's wrong with the world right now. People don't do whatever the fuck they want because they're conditioned by society to do what society and what their authorities that are given to them. Anyways, I'm getting off base, but all right, let's get back to Hannah. She's doing a bang up job.
To break the rules, or to rebel, or to want to liberate yourself. I'm thinking about how the 8th house will be in combination with this 10th house transit, as well as the 6th. So when we combine these 3 particular houses over the next coming years for you, we're seeing major work career changes, major shifts tied to your public image, just your overall lifestyle, your overall way of showing up. Big changes. And I also look at this through a lens of how you join together resource-wise, material-wise with others. Seeing which kinds of people you can trust, which kinds of business partners you can trust, which kinds of businesses you invest in or you would like to invest in. A strong message, I think, overall is investing in your future, experiencing this higher calling to invest in your future, possibly wanting to retire earlier, or possibly wanting to pour a lot of your resources into a particular project or a particular business, or something investment wise even there, right? But yes, wanting to pour your resources into those areas so that you will have plenty of finances to set you up, right? What's coming through is thinking about the long game and getting ahead of the curve.
That's what this channel, Know Thyself Now with John Zortzis, is all about. And I'm thinking about changing the name of it, but I'm not going to do it yet, so I won't say anything about that. I'm thinking about adding quad right to my channel, but I'm not sure if I want to do that or not, so that's just an idea I've got. But yeah, I've got over a couple hundred videos that I've made already, and I'm sitting on the videos, and they're ready to be released. Right now I've got four videos already done for the next 2 weeks, so they're already done. And then I also have about 7 other videos that I'm gonna need to prepare to get done. So I'll probably have probably by next week I'll have 8 videos, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 videos already in the future already made. So I know what I'm doing, and I'm having a great time doing it, and I'm a nonconformist, and fuck authority.
You may even find that you enter into a whole new industry you start your own venture, or you add to something that you've already created. Now, it could also be a case of such sudden change happening to your social standing, your social status, to your public persona, maybe wanting to redefine what those very things are, and reinventing yourself basically professionally, reinventing your public image, actively seeking out, in a way, new opportunities for growth. Possibly even inventing something, right? Inventing some kind of product or a device, or using technology in a large way to get ahead. Using education as a way to get ahead, or as a way to make significant shifts in consciousness, or as a way to make significant changes within society. So to give back, to make a difference, to make life that much easier, to help. And the other thing I want to add to this is the fact that as Uranus does travel through your 10th house over the next 6 to 7 years, remember that Uranus will create squares to all of that Virgo in your chart. So what I think will be a bit of a challenge for you over the next coming years is trying to think more so about the group and about the collective and the collective visions and aims versus what your personal views are. I think with you having so much of this first house influence, it's almost like your independence is very strong within you, in that you may really want to do things your way, and it might be difficult for you at times to let go of control, or to let others help, to let others bring their unique things, to let others bring their contributions to the group. So what I'm getting from this is the group is what will support you and what could really help you perform, help you advance. So it's trying to approach your professional life from this place of, let's be a team. Let's learn from one another. Let's learn from each other's strengths and gifts, and let's delegate some tasks. And so equally, I think in this regard, you are going to refine your skills. You're going to improve upon your teamwork skills, your collaborative skills, your interpersonal skills. I suppose this does make sense because there is a lot happening on this left side of the chart, and the left side of the chart is often associated with personal aims, personal ambitions and values, versus the right side of the chart that's very collaborative, that's very other focused, team focused. So I think, again, when we bring it back to how the North Node is in the 7th, traveling through for the next year, this is where we're going to see spiritual growth on your behalf, okay? So to think about, for example, times whenever you're so stressed out or high strung about particular projects or about your life, maybe a part of what you'll come to learn about yourself is how to have more patience, or how to step to the side a little bit and go, I'm going to trust that X, Y, and Z, that those people, they have their role, that it's not up to me to always be the one who carries that weight or feels like I need to be in control essentially all the time. So those would be a few different things that could come up. So we want to think about how those behaviors show up within professional settings. Though at the same time, I think what's important to note is with Saturn and Neptune traveling through your 8th house, it will be important to establish clear boundaries, because there could be some confusion over who does what, for example, over who contributes to the business or to the project, to the group, to the work scenario. So basically to set clear intentions about what role you play, the role that other people play. This could also, of course, manifest within your intimate relationships. So to think about your spouse, your significant other, close friends as well. So, for example, this could be about being very clear with relation to could be your energy levels, it could be your own sense of self, your own boundaries, and how much you can physically take on throughout the day. How much you can physically take on within a particular project that involves your spouse, your significant other. This could also be a case of the Neptune-Saturn transits over the next few years representing a time of great healing, and I would say this could manifest then psychologically, right? So possibly going to speak with a therapist or with a healer, or even using the occult as a healing tool. Or this can manifest as seeking greater emotional connection, to bond on a more emotional level with a friend or a close relative. So whatever this may be, I think whilst Neptune suggests this dreaminess, this vision that could be experienced where you feel excited, possibly, right? You feel excited, you feel enthusiastic, inspired. Saturn still speaks to some responsibility and trying not to get too carried away, right? To be somewhat cautious and somewhat skeptical too. I'm even thinking about the relationship you have with your children, if you have any children, right? Because Saturn rules the 5th house for you. I'm thinking about relationships with co-workers here as well. So it's just being clear about what your intentions are, what your motives are, what you want out of a particular project, what you want out of a particular financial situation or out of an intimate situation. That way you and others are going to be on the same page from the beginning, hopefully. And then that also can suggest a stronger foundation, a sturdier foundation. With Neptune involved, sure, yes, there could still be some structures, foundations that are dissolved. And at the same time, this could manifest as feeling slightly lethargic or experiencing fatigue or feeling a bit restless or like you're not fully energized, right? That's another possibility. It could be that there are times when you just need to rest, you need to reset. Maybe it's trying to find a bit of a balance there, or to kind of see that both can work together. So there can be periods of building, growth, being assertive, but also times whenever you can slow down, reset, recharge, ask yourself, okay, check in. Is this for me? How aligned am I with this? It's basically, I think what's really fascinating about these transits for you over the next coming years is you have an opportunity to really pay close attention to those sparks of inspiration, those sparks of eagerness, but equally to check in and say, hold on, I'm not feeling inspired. I'm not feeling that enthusiastic right now. And sure, it could be a case of needing to push through at times, but it can also be a case of listening to how you're feeling, energetically I'm talking about, physically speaking. And this could be where great transformation occurs. Maybe this is going to be a big lesson for you over the next coming years, John, because with so much Virgo, I see this as you living so much of your life being the doer, being the helper, being the one who jumps in, being the one who is reliable. So others calling you up and saying, I need your help with this. Can you do this? Can you do this? And you getting so used to that, right? Being in that rhythm and finding it difficult then to not be that way, I suppose, to a large extent. But maybe with these transits over the next coming years, you're going to get yourself to a point where you're not as available, let's just put it that way. And you're able to put yourself first, to make yourself a priority. This is not about being completely selfish. This is not about saying, oh, I'm going to be hyper independent and I don't need anyone, I'm not going to give to anyone. This, again, I go back to balance here. This is about you trying to come from a place of, okay, how much of that service role, helper role, how much of that does me good, and how much of that drains me. So I think this is a big opportunity basically for you to shed past identities, to embrace a new vision, a new way of showing up in the world, right? This, of course, is about death and rebirth, because this is happening in your 8th house of grand, passionate, bold transformation. So we're going to see for you these endings to do with identity, endings to do with self-assertiveness, and then being able to embark on a new journey. And this is where you're going to grow to a large extent. So it's these kinds of experiences and feelings and behaviors that are going to be strongly, heavily tied in with your career, tied in with your everyday, your daily habits, your daily routines. Now, of course, with that in mind, trying to accept such releases, such endings could be difficult, because it could be a case of you holding on and not wanting to let go, because those things, those titles, those identities, they have served a purpose. They're what you're used to. But you see, 8th house transits communicate this message of face your fears. Explore what is hidden. Go beneath the surface. And tap into parts of the self that are locked away. Yeah, I think you're really going to surprise yourself over the next coming years, especially, over the next 6 years or so. I think it could be a case where in about 5 to 6 years, you look back at 2025 and you think, I'm unrecognizable. Who was that person? I'm so glad I made that change. I'm so glad I took the leap. I'm so glad I went for that business opportunity or that career opportunity. You see, at the same time, the interesting thing is Jupiter will also transit through this 11th house area for you over the next year. So Jupiter will enter Cancer June of 2025, will be there for a whole year. And so you may find that your networks expand. You may find that group dynamics, they start to really flourish. It's that by you nurturing your friendships, by you nurturing your groups and your causes or certain projects that you want to be a part of, you're going to get so much back. And you may find that you're going to be left feeling pretty blessed, pretty satisfied. And a lot of those groups, it's going to be basically about experiencing emotional fulfillment within them. At the same time, I do want to mention that with Jupiter traveling through your 10th house over the past year, right? So Jupiter has been transiting your 10th house since May of 2024. So for the past year, you may find that your direction has changed and that this has been a year of great meaning. A lot of bigger questions have been asked about your future, about your purpose, about your direction, your moral compass. I mean, following your moral compass and aligning with that. And this is basically where we've seen a lot of growth for you. And you may find that you're left feeling pretty blessed or feeling like, you know what, over the past year, I'm really glad that I questioned. I'm really glad that I asked questions about my next step especially within relationships, especially regarding career and everything, success, what success means to you. Though before we move on to this opposition between Ceres, Juno in Scorpio versus Vesta in Taurus, I actually wanted to take a quick look at your solar return for the year. Okay, so whenever you do celebrate your next birthday, John, this is basically the chart that will be drawn up for the year based on the position of the sun. So this solar return chart can basically describe how your life may unfold throughout the year. And what we see is that Cancer is on the rising, so a lot of themes to do with family and home, comfort, your emotional security. And then Jupiter is also in Cancer, where it is exalted. So we could literally look at this as you relocating, moving, being open to new territories. This could also be a case of traveling for family purposes or with family. Could also be a case of feeling lucky, feeling blessed, feeling fortunate to a large extent, and even following your intuition when it comes to expanding, when it comes to your personal growth. And I think your health and your vitality are going to be big themes to focus on when we consider your intuition and how you nurture yourself, how you nurture your body. Then the North Node is making a trine to Jupiter, and the North Node is in the 9th. So that can literally manifest as you following this path of travel, right? You expanding your mind, elevating your consciousness, having many spiritual experiences perhaps whilst you are traveling. So that's really exciting to see with the North Node in Pisces. Plus, there is so much happening in the 10th house area as well. Of course, Saturn and Neptune will be in Aries. They'll both be retrograde. So at the same time, I'm thinking to myself that whilst there is a lot of movement and activity when it comes to the likes of travel, family, home, I think there's also going to be a few more questions regarding what we were talking about, success, and what you want to build for the future. Maybe we could look at it as your year ahead being a year of great reflection and assessing exactly what you want to build and what the dream is as well, to a large extent, particularly when it comes to your professional life. Okay, and furthermore, what we also notice is that Mars is located in the 4th house there. So we could equally see this as a lot of activity regarding how you can maybe find balance at home. Okay, how you can maybe try to even things out, compromising perhaps with certain family members, having to have discussions about the next step so that you and certain family members are on the same page. And then we also notice that Pluto is making that trine to Uranus between the 8th and 12th houses. So we also notice psychological shifts, psychological changes that will unfold throughout the year as well. But let's now focus on these asteroids. Right, I want to draw your attention firstly to Juno. So Juno is this asteroid of marriage and mutual respect. It's an asteroid of commitment. So if you can imagine, Venus, of course, is about how we love and the kinds of qualities we value in people and within ourselves, the kinds of people we're attracted to. And of course, Venus is in Virgo, and this can be an indicator of you valuing, appreciating relationships that are based on great helpfulness and thoughtfulness, people who are quite clean, hygienic, pretty intelligent, witty. And then when we look to Juno, Juno is in Scorpio. So Scorpio is such a deep sign and really values and yearns for a deeper connection, intimacy, closeness. Vulnerability is a big theme here, but equally I do think that vulnerability is a challenge within itself, because often Scorpio can fear vulnerability. And so maybe for you, what you have experienced within your committed relationships especially is that perhaps there's a part of you that resists or is slightly afraid, or it's that you need trust. You need to establish this foundation of trust and intimacy. And so it's really important to pull back the layers, I suppose, when it comes to getting close. And so Juno here in Scorpio does suggest that when it comes to the likes of marriage, right, the likes of even, I would say here, the likes of entering into a business deal that's more consistent and committed. Basically, when it comes to those very relationship dynamics, you need to feel like you can go all in. Like you can go all in 100%. You can trust those people, that person. And that is basically the strength that's present. The glue, I suppose you could say. But also, we see that Ceres is in Scorpio and it's very close to Juno. So Ceres is such a nurturing asteroid. Ceres is very much tied to closeness as well, connection. But equally, Ceres can be about separation. Ceres can show up as loss, grief. And then Juno, we just want to think about this from another way with Juno. Juno can be about divorce and how we retaliate whenever we've been betrayed, whenever there has been infidelity. So in Scorpio, we see the intensity, right? We see this possibility of you experiencing could be really tragic losses throughout your life, maybe related to siblings, related to certain peers, classmates, perhaps throughout your younger years. When we think about, your early schooling experiences there could have been some kind of loss or grief present. We could also look at this as you experiencing very strong feelings of separation and possibly feelings of abandonment due to the ending of a relationship or a marriage. So we think about this possibility of a divorce that you have experienced, that you've went through at some point. Plus, this could manifest as you witnessing your own parents divorcing, or you witnessing people very close to you divorcing. But what I'm getting from this connection between Juno and Ceres in Scorpio is that there's something quite notable about loss. There's something quite notable about endings. And perhaps how certain endings have even psychologically impacted you. And maybe looking at how those endings contribute to how you show up within your relationships moving forward as well. So let's now think about Vesta, right? So Vesta is this asteroid of home, hearth, safety, protection, I would say, to a large extent. Vesta is very much about our dedication to our goals. So Vesta in Taurus suggests to me that you can be quite a determined individual regarding your goals, regarding your dedication, right? You can be quite fixed, set in your ways, have the stamina. You possess a mighty endurance. And you may even devote yourself to certain religious practices. Maybe this has been a part of your story throughout your life. you being this very committed, very responsible, hands-on individual within a church, within a certain group practice. Could be, of course, a particular philosophical view or belief that you have about the world. And so you stay true to that, right? You stay very much focused on those things. Could also be a case of you striving a great deal when it came to higher education, maybe wanting to help others, wanting to influence the world in a way where people feel supported, they feel secure, maybe offering your assistance, offering practical resource, so we think about resources, right? Practical things, spending your earned money on experiences for people where they feel valued. And the fact that Vesta is also connecting quite strongly with the moon, we could look at this through a lens of you being quite the provider, or when it comes to your family, you do show up for your family. Yeah. Now, with Vesta opposite, however, this Scorpio energy, we notice the push and pull. We notice the back and forth, the imbalances, the power struggles. And this, of course, could very well manifest as you wanting to make yourself a priority or wanting to commit yourself, to devote yourself to a particular plan, but then those commitments clashing with, could be a relationship, it could be siblings, could be a case of power struggles tied to finances, right? So we think about money here because Taurus and Scorpio are very much signs of money and wealth. So there could be some of those challenges to do with control there regarding money. And again, those very challenges could show up within your sibling relationships. So we think, for example, about sibling rivalry here. Greed could come into this. Stubbornness could come into this. Could also be a case of you wanting to make something for yourself or to do something for yourself, but then certain family members disagreeing with that, possibly judging you for that, shaming you for that. Could also be a matter of you needing some kind of separation from a committed partner, from a spouse, your significant other. And again, we see the push and pull, right? Both Taurus and Scorpio are very fixed, so they can be very much set in their ways. So this can suggest a lack of compromise, and it's this lack of compromise that can show up within discussions and conversations. So to consider how you and particular people you have power struggles with, so how you and them clash in your views, in your opinions. Could be a case of you wanting to follow your own spiritual path, religious path, but then certain members again disagreeing. Could also be a case of disagreeing over information, over knowledge. There could be levels here of deceit and hidden truths, hidden matters as well. And what also comes into the equation, of course, is the fact that Neptune is also involved in this, because Neptune is in the third house and is opposing Black Moon Lilith. So let's just take a moment here, because what we see is that the secondary progressed Juno is very close to Neptune. So we're seeing, certain changes, developments within marriage, within committed relationships, devoted relationships. Venus is also close by, so the secondary progressed Venus, and Ceres too. So a reminder, Venus is very much about love and connection, and is also about what is fair, actually. Venus can be quite the conditional way of loving others. And then Ceres, of course, is tied to an extent, yes, to nurture, to feel safe, but also can show up as separation. Right, so I just wanted to give some context there, because whenever we explore Neptune, this can indicate ideals, can indicate a fog, not seeing things very clearly within your local area, your local environment. I mean, it could even be a case of you not feeling super seen within your local community, within certain smaller social circles. Could be a case of you devoting yourself to certain spiritual practices for the community or within the community, but there's just something here that's not fully content. What I'm getting from this is a lack of emotional fulfillment, or feeling like a part of you is invisible, a part of you isn't fully being accessed. Could also be a case of certain addictive tendencies coming into this, whether this be addiction within your siblings, or your siblings basically struggling with addiction, right? Or this could be a case of you being quite uncertain about who is being honest with you, right? So there could be some untruths, basically, when it comes to more of those everyday conversations. Could even be a case of uncertainty, confusion, or deceit tied to your vehicle, right? Or to different vehicles that you possess. Okay, so with the opposition then to Black Moon Lilith, I see this as you possessing quite the mighty wrath. And what I mean by this is you reaching a breaking point with this kind of behavior. So these power struggle dynamics that I previously mentioned, you reaching a point of, I'm not putting up with this anymore. I'm done with this. I need out of here. I need to put myself first. These are my assets. These are my personal belongings. You're not going to take this away from me. And I also see this as you taking back some form of control. It's really an interesting thing, because you have so much, like I was saying earlier, you have so much Virgo, and that Virgo in the first house can show up as you being very self-sufficient, self-reliant, there for people, very much available, very studious, very gifted even when it comes to organization, when it comes to planning things. It could be a case of you being very health conscious and just very mindful of the things you need to do to get through the day, to make your life as good as it can possibly be, right? There's this continuous improvement when it comes to Virgo, and so of course this improvement can be really beneficial, right? You know, adding to your life essentially. But then what we notice is that Mars is in the 12th, and Mars in the 12th, Mars in the 12th is not the easiest placement, because what it can often indicate is that anger is kept in check, right? Frustration is kept in check. What you actually want to say or what you want to do is hidden, is locked away.
Now, I just had a huge back and forth argument with my sister a few days ago, and today is May 28th, 2025, and 3 days ago, on May 25th, it's a Wednesday today, on May 25th, Sunday, Saturn entered Aries. Okay? And I had a really big argument with my sister. I mean, this is like huge. And basically, it was about flat Earth and vegetarianism. Okay? And yesterday, Tuesday, I made up my mind that I don't want, and now I had Saturn in my in Pisces in my ops. You know, the peace dealer says the ops for Virgo, ops means opposite, is Pisces. The ops for Leo is Aquarius. Okay, the ops for Scorpio is Taurus. And Taurus is the ops for Scorpio. They're opposite each other. And I had a 7th house transit. And now that Saturn is in Aries, I created boundaries. And I do not want to have anybody who's close to me, like a close friend. An acquaintance is something else. I don't mind acquaintances not believing in the flat earth and not believing in being a vegetarian. But close friends of mine, I just made a boundary, and I haven't told my sister yet. I just am not going to talk to her. You know, she wants to talk to me, she can call me. I'm not going to call her. I'm fucking sick and tired of her bullshit. You know, I was telling her about vegetarianism and how, like, for the past 9 years, I've been telling her about vegetarianism because I became a vegetarian in 2015. And I was a pescatarian for 3 years, so 2015, 16, 17, 8, about 2019, I became full vegetarian, you know, and now I'm basically want to become a vegan. I just gotta give up cheese, which I pretty much have done already, but I still eat it occasionally. Anyways, so this argument I had with my sister, it was like, fuck this shit. And now that Saturn has moved into Aries, and we also had the new moon in Gemini, okay? You know, that's what really did it. You know? We had the new moon in Gemini on Monday. And after that, I decided it came upon me suddenly, fuck her, you know? I don't love her anymore, and she's irrelevant to my life. In fact, the only people who are relevant in my life are people who are vegetarian and people who know the earth is flat. Not believe, who know the earth is flat. That's it. I don't want anybody who thinks that the earth is a spinning globe to be a part of my life. Okay, I don't want anybody. Fuck them. Fuck you, okay, if you believe that shit. Prove curvature. You can't do it. You can't prove curvature, bitch. Fucking A, man. There's a guy, Flat Earth Dave. He's got a Flat Earth Dave. He's got a Flat Earth Zodiac app, you know, and he has 3 Bitcoins he'll give to anybody that can prove that there's curvature. And he's been doing this for like 3 or 4 years now. And guess what? The past 3 or 4 years, not one person on this planet has gotten the 3 Bitcoins. Nobody can prove that there's curvature, okay? Anybody who believes that the earth is a spinning globe and the sun is 93 million miles away is a fool. You can't prove it. Prove it then. If you prove curvature, go ahead, bitch. Fucking A, man. So now she's no longer part of my life. She's irrelevant until she believes in the flat earth and becomes a vegetarian. Otherwise, I'm talking to her as little as possible. Fuck her, man. Fucking bitch.
Maybe a part of that is due to having to put on a show for others, having to perform for others, having to do the right thing. Just being so consumed, I guess, by all of that Virgo influence of being the good person, being the perfect person, the one who never steps out of line.
Tell him, Hannah.
But yet,
Tell
the
him,
Mars
Hannah.
in Leo has something to offer you, right? The Mars in Leo says, okay, but I want to actually express what I truly think, and I am done with this kind of behavior. I need to get away from this.
Absolutely
I need to think
done.
about what I
She's
want
nailing
to do.
it. How can she do
and
that?
I think that that's a very similar message even when we explore how Saturn is in Aries too, because with Saturn in Aries, it can manifest as this confinement to do with your sense of self, to do with asserting yourself. So as you approach the second Saturn return, I'm thinking about one, what wounds are coming up to the surface again, what's becoming quite evident within yourself psychologically, emotionally, because Saturn is going to connect with that Chiron influence very strongly in the next coming weeks, right? So there is that, and over the next year or so, just to highlight. So I think as you start to gear up for this second Saturn return, it's almost like you're being taken into the depths again. You're being taken into the underworld. You're being called to assess what is buried. And that within itself is about transformation. It's about liberation. Because what I think is even important to note here about Black Moon Lilith is this is about reclaiming your power. And it's fascinating because Uranus, when we think about the transit of Uranus has been in Taurus for the past 7 years or so, right? So traveling through this 9th house area for you. And over the past year or so, a couple of years even, Uranus has joined up with Lilith in your chart. And so I think this has suggested a shake-up. There's something very disruptive and unpredictable about your belief systems, about your worldviews, about the kinds of messages that you share with the world or that you consume. Thinking about what you've outgrown, which kinds of messages and worldviews, which ones just do not align with you anymore. And
fuck the globe.
Cause you.
Go ahead and prove the globe Earth and this curvature. Prove it. You can't do it. It's impossible. You get 3 bitcoins. That's like
you feel stuck. You feel limited.
$300,000 if you can prove the curvature. Why don't you go prove curvature and get $300,000, bitch?
And being this profound bringer of truth and insight, almost as if to say you have experienced a big awakening, perhaps what has felt like a rude awakening, right? Because hard truths have come up too, I would say. But again, I think it comes back to reclaiming your power when it comes to your possessions, when it comes to your belongings, when it comes to your self-worth.
Here's another thing. This is going to be hard for me to do, to find people who don't ejaculate. You know, the porn and shit like that, the fucking ejaculators. Fuck the ejaculators. If you ejaculate the porn, you're a stupid fucking piece of shit. If you ejaculate in general, you're a fucker. You're a stupid fuck. You know? But how am I going to meet people who don't ejaculate? You know? It's like the whole world does that shit. Fucking jagoffs.
Right? When it comes to what your beliefs are. Even assessing certain limiting beliefs that you've held for so long. It's like Uranus has came along and has just broken those things down and has shattered certain systems, shattered certain structures and foundations, and has said, rethink this. Rethink the program. What you've been fed, what you've been conditioned to believe. And here's the thing about it as well. Uranus is pretty much making a sextile to Chiron in your chart. I just want to take a moment to explain this. So with Chiron being in Aries, just want to take some time. Chiron in Aries can indicate that there is a wound. There's a deep-seated wound that says, I can't be myself. I can't assert myself. I can't go after my goals. I don't have what it takes to go after what I want. I'm afraid. I'm afraid of what might happen if I do. Chiron in Aries can also be this indicator of people pleasing, of trying to manage everybody else's emotions, being there even through people's time of need, especially in the 8th house, because the 8th house is about loss and grief. I'm also thinking a little bit about what you needed, especially when you were younger, what you needed, and how you may have fit into this role of, I'm going to be there for everybody else. So on one hand, you know, I said earlier about so much energy being in the 1st house, and that can really manifest as you being self-sufficient, independent, possibly having to put yourself first to a large extent, having to provide for yourself. But on the other hand, the South Node in Libra still indicates that there's a part of you that finds it hard to be able to say to people, no, I need time for me. And I'm talking about this from a perspective of emotional clarity and taking care of yourself emotionally, psychologically. Sure, it is one thing to show up practically and physically for people, to be that doer, with so much Virgo there. But it's another thing to really feel the depth of your pain. It's another thing to be able to sit at the end of the day and check in with yourself and to say, how did today go? Like, what happened? And how do I feel about that?
Have a desire to know thyself more? Book a transformational session with me, and you could book an astrology session, a numerology session, human design, and more. Check out the links below and do a one-on-one transformational session with me, Jan Zortzes. Looking forward to seeing you.